Hey, what's up? Kalen here. In this video, I wanted to talk about a tweet that I saw talking about 10x engineers or standout engineers, which I thought was interesting. Tweet was basic. Well, let me. So there's a couple tweets. So the original one, a guy named Greg Poirier says, "I hate the term 10x engineer. If there's a standout engineer in your team that can't elevate those around them, then you don't have an engineer, you have a liability." And then somebody quoted that, Marlene J, and tweeted, "Standout engineers do not have an obligation to elevate those around them. They're there to do the job they were hired to do. If they do happen to elevate others, that's great. If they don't, it absolutely does not make them liabilities to a team or employer." And I find myself agreeing with the latter perspective on that. It's interesting. This whole 10x engineer thing is something that people have kind of reacted strongly to, or uh, it may be because it's become a little buzzwordy. I don't think most people would deny the fact that there are developers that are significantly more productive than others. I mean, by the very nature of what software development is, there's a lot of potential for leverage, right? So you learn how to use a tool faster, and then I mean, as a developer, we've all experienced this. Like, we do one simple thing like using Xdebug, or learning something in your IDE that to autocomplete or to use template. Like, there's so many things you can do that speed you up. Not to mention being familiar with the system. I mean, there's so many things that we go, oh my gosh, I'm so much faster now than I was yesterday because of this. And when you add all those things up, it's not hard to see how some developers can be significantly more productive than others. And I know that's something that probably is, it obviously bothers a lot of people to think about that for whatever reason or another. I mean, this isn't physical labor. Like, if we're talking about laying bricks, there's only you can maybe two times faster than a regular bricklayer, or maybe three tops, right? Because it's physical labor. You're laying physical things, and you can only be so much faster, right? But when you're working in software, when you're moving bits around, there's essentially like unlimited ability for leverage, right? So people don't really like that, though, and they say things like that, which is, and I think like the heart of what they're getting at, like, it's one thing if you're a really great engineer and you're just absolutely horrible to work with, like, that's not good, and that's going to hurt the overall work environment, obviously. So if that's the case, that's definitely going to hurt the overall work environment, and the additional gain in productivity might not be worth it. But to say that, if you don't elevate others, if you don't, and then I've seen the thing like a 10x developer is a developer that makes people around 10 times 10 people around them, 1x better or whatever. And there's certainly truth to that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there's also truth to the fact that there's just 10x engineers. There's just developers that are insanely productive, insanely good. And so it's this interesting thing where this person's essentially saying, like, if you can't elevate those around you, you're a liability. And I think that goes a bit too far. I thought the way that the person described it, saying, listen, you're hired to do a job. Like let's say if take the analogy to laying bricks, if it's your job to lay bricks, like, yeah, it's great if you're nice to your coworkers. Hopefully you are. Hopefully you're not a complete disaster to them. But if you lay X number of bricks per day, then you're doing your job. Like, that's your job. And of course, building software is inherently collaborative. Just like most jobs are to some extent. So to the extent that you have to collaborate with others, of course, that's important. I think of like Linus Torvalds, who, I don't know too much about him, but from what I understand, he can be difficult to work with. He has very strong opinions on things, and he can be pretty feisty, in the way he communicates with people. But nobody would deny that what he's done with Linux, with Git, are not massive contributions to software and to the world in general. Like, he like as bad as he may be interpersonally, and again, I don't know too much. I've seen a few tweets or things pop here and there where he was being kind of feisty, so I'm not like an expert on him or anything. But Even, like you just can't deny the fact that the things that were created are of massive value, independent of, how much he elevated others around him. Now, if you take the word, it depends on what's meant by elevate those around him, because obviously, Linus Torvalds has done that with the tools that he's created. I felt like the sense in which this was meant was, collaborating, teaching, mentoring others around you, which are all great things. But it doesn't make just being a great developer a bad thing. That's a great thing too. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me know what you think. Agree, disagree. Post it up in the comments. I'd appreciate it. And thanks for watching.